"Is there anyone you'd like me to call? Anyone at all?" She asked it gently, the way you ask something when you already sense the answer and want to give the person the dignity of saying it themselves rather than having it assumed. The man in the bed turned his head slowly toward her. He was 33 years old, which was far too young for the particular exhaustion in his eyes, the kind that had nothing to do with the illness and everything to do with the years before it. "There's no one," he said. "There hasn't been for a long time." His name was Stellan Voss. He had built a company from nothing, accumulated more than most people see in several lifetimes, and had done it with the focused, consuming energy of someone who had decided, somewhere in his 20s, that work was safer than people. He had been right about that, in the narrow way that people are right about things that cost them everything else. The nurse was Lena Ashby, 26 years old, third year on the palliative floor at Meridian General. She had learned, in those 3 years, that the most important thing she carried into any room was not clinical but human, her willingness to stay, to be present without agenda, to treat the person in the bed as someone whose life had weight and meaning regardless of what the chart said about their prognosis. She pulled the chair closer and sat down. She did not say "I'm sorry." She did not say "it'll be okay." She simply sat with him in the early evening quiet, the monitors keeping their patient count, the corridor outside moving with its ordinary distant sounds. She asked him once if he wanted the television on. He said no. She asked if he wanted water. He said yes, and she got it, and when she handed him the cup she didn't immediately let go. She held the other side until she was sure he had it, a small thing, the kind of small thing that costs nothing and means everything. He looked at her hand on the cup. Then he looked at her. "Why do you stay?" he said. "When your rounds are finished." "Because you're here," she said simply. He was quiet for a long time after that. She came back every evening for 11 days. She brought nothing, no gifts, no performance of kindness. She brought herself, which was the only thing he needed and the thing no one had offered him in longer than he could clearly remember. They talked, eventually, about small things at first and then larger ones. He told her about the company, about the years of building it, about the specific morning he had realized he had created something significant and had no one to tell. She told him about her mother, who had died on a floor very like this one when Lena was 19, and about how that loss had sent her here, not away from hospitals but toward them, because she had understood from her mother's last weeks what it meant to have someone stay. He listened to this with the full attention of someone receiving something rare. On the 9th evening he said, without preamble, "You remind me of what I forgot to value." She looked at him. "What did you forget?" "That being with someone," he said slowly, "is the whole of it. Everything else is just the time you spend getting here." She held his hand that night. He had reached for it, tentatively, and she had taken it without hesitation, and they sat in the quiet of the room while the city moved outside the window and the light faded and the monitors kept their faithful, unhurried count. He died on a Tuesday morning, peacefully, which was the word the charts used and which was, for once, entirely accurate. Lena was not on shift. She heard from a colleague and sat in the break room for a few minutes by herself, holding a cup of tea she didn't drink. 6 weeks later, a letter arrived from a law firm. She read it 3 times before it fully assembled into meaning. Stellan Voss had amended his will in the final week of his life. He had left the entirety of his estate, investments, properties, the company shares, to a charitable foundation established in his name, with one condition: that Lena Ashby serve as its founding director, with full authority over its mission, which he had specified in a single sentence, to ensure that no person dies alone who doesn't want to. At the bottom of the legal document, on a separate sheet in his handwriting, uneven, careful, the writing of someone working with considerable effort, was a note. 4 lines. She memorized them without trying to. "You stayed when there was nothing in it for you. You held my hand when I had nothing left to offer. You gave me back the thing I forgot mattered. I tried to do the same for you." She sat at her kitchen table for a long time that evening. Then she called her supervisor and gave notice. And then she began. The moral is in those 11 evenings, in a young nurse who pulled her chair closer to a man the world had stopped sitting with, and stayed. Kindness given to someone who cannot give anything back is the truest form there is. Lena did not stay because she expected anything. She stayed because he was there, and he was alone, and she knew, from her own loss, what that cost a person. That is the whole of the story. And it was enough. It has always been enough. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Let's spread more stories of kindness and hope together.